Welcome to Economics 2.4. Today, we're going to talk about mixed economies, and this is where just about every economy in the world is right now. It's a combination of those free market aspects and those centrally planned economies or command economies. And again, it depends on what percentage is free market and command as to whether we would then look at do they have a communist political system, socialism, things like that. So we are going to talk about the rise in mixed economic systems, how government actions affect that circular flow model. So we're going to look at that again with the government involved. We're going to compare mixed economies of various nations because, again, some are more centrally planned, some are more free market. And then we're going to talk about the role of free enterprise in the United States economy. Now, this first term, laissez-faire, we are going to use this a lot. Again, it's pronounced laissez-faire. It basically means hands off. And I mean, you can laissez-faire with anything. Hey, laissez-faire my car, hands off my car. But when we talk about it in econ, this is basically saying that the government should keep their hands out of the economy. They should not intervene. And I've touched on this before that prior to the Great Depression, this was the attitude the government had, laissez-faire. We'll get into later on that after the Great Depression, this is no longer the case. Private property. This is property that's owned by individuals and companies. Oops, sorry about that. It's not owned by the government or the people as a whole. That's private property. So my house is private property. My car is private property. This pen I own, it's private property. Now, public property would be stuff, and we'll get to that later, that's stuff that is owned by the government, like this school, Beach High School, the textbooks, things like that. Intellectual property. This is going to be things you create. It's going to be stuff up here in your mind. Okay. That could be a book you wrote. It could be a song. It could be, like I said, Walt Disney started with a little mouse. That is intellectual property. And those consist of ideas rather than physical objects. Now, what is a mixed economy? And a mixed economy is an economic system. It has some market-based elements and some level of government involvement. And again, it depends on what percentage it is. Are you 95% free market and only 5% centrally planned? Are you 95% centrally planned and only 5% free market? And then we talk about economic transition. This is a period of change in which a nation moves from one economic system to another. And some examples in history have been when the Soviet Union fell, that was a really, really abrupt economic transition. However, we can also look at China, and we'll study China. China is making slow, like baby step transitions to add more free market aspects into their economy. Excuse me. And then privatization. This would be the process of selling businesses and services that were once operated by the government to individual investors, and then allowing them to compete in the marketplace. Don't really see much of that in the United States because there's not much that's owned. But let's just say all of a sudden they sold off Drakes Creek Park in Hendersonville and Moss Wright and Goodlettsville, and they started charging admission and were allowed to compete. That would be an example. When Russia fell from communism, they started to sell off some things that the government formerly owned to investors. Now, what is the whole purpose of having a mixed economy? Why don't you go one way or the other? Well, we have a high degree of economic freedom here in the United States. We've talked about that. However, if we were pure free market, then at whatever age I wanted, I could go buy cigarettes, I could go buy alcohol, I could drive a car, I could do whatever I want. We don't have total freedom because, again, to buy cigarettes and alcohol, you need to be 21. To drive a car, you need to be 16 and have gone through the permit. You can't just have anybody go or operate heavy machinery. And again, I don't get to go, no thanks, I'm not going to pay taxes. We have to have some type of order and some type of system, and that's where the government comes in. So why does the government get involved in the economy, and why does it balance it out? Well, back in like the 1930s, Hollywood was starting to become big, and Shirley Temple is one of the biggest child actors, one of the first biggest child actors. And people would just work kids forever, not just even in the entertainment industry, but parents would have kids and then send them off to work at young ages, like this young man seen here in this picture. So in 1938, they had to set the Fair Labor Standards Acts, and that set a policy on child labor. And again, some of y'all have probably tried to get a job and realize, like, ooh, at 15, nobody hires. I need to be 16. There are certain jobs you have to be 18 to get. Uh, and all that comes from the government. Now, how do most economies work? We're going to look here at a flow. This is our circular flow model, and it's going to show the interaction of households and firms with the government in the middle here. And so households not only spend their money to businesses, but you can see they funnel taxes to the government. And then when we talk about businesses, yes, they pay employees paychecks, but they also have to pay taxes to the government. Now, if we look at the physical flow here, same thing. The government buys things from companies. So there are physical things that go to the government as well as households. And also from households, we've got physically people working for businesses, but we also have people working for government owned factors. I'm someone that works for the government. I work for public school. So again, I'm coming from a household and working for the government. Now here we've got selected government transfer payments. Social Security is probably one of our biggest expenses as a country. And we'll talk later that it's mandatory spending, so it's not something that we can cut the budget or anything like that. Medicare, same thing. There you got $500 million. We've got unemployment insurance, training and assistance payment, food stamps, and veterans benefits. And I don't know about y'all, but I look down there at veterans benefits, and the fact that it's last, yeah, that's why we hear a lot about veteran reform and what can we do for veterans. Now, most modern economies are mixed economies. So let's look right here in this figure. This is going to show us just about everything in the world is a mixed economy. Some are more free than others. If you look at the graph, Singapore has one of the freest markets. I mean, they have the least amount of government interaction of anybody. They're known for their vibrant economies. Singapore also has good schools. I've been studying that. United States, you can see where they're about, 3/4 of the way, 65-35, 75-25. Mexico, interesting, is 50-50, about 50% government involvement and 50% free market. And if we go to North Korea is the most centrally planned. And if you watched anything in the news, yes, they're a communist society, and it's really hard to get any information on. It's really hard to even get in the country because there are such strict government controls. Here's a picture of Singapore I was just talking about. They are known for its vibrant and pure and free market economy. Again, very little government intervention. Now, our American system is a mixed system. The foundation of our economy is free market. Like that's what people came over here from England for, is to be able to have that freedom to start their own business and be whatever they wanted to be. So our free enterprise system is characterized by individual and corporate ownership of capital goods. We don't have a lot that's government owned. Investment in firms are made in a free market atmosphere by private decision. I can go buy stock in any company I want. If I want to start a business, I can start a business. I don't need too much government interaction. Yes, I've got to go get the right licenses and set it up correctly, but I'm allowed to go do that. Now, this was something from 2012. The New York mayor decided that, we have an obesity problem, and that obesity problem is because of large size soft drinks. And so he wanted to put a ban on it, those supersize, the big gulps, the Route 44s. And like this man here, he's like, I really don't care to drink. I don't drink soda. It's not affecting me at all, this ban. However, I believe in freedom. And if somebody wants to drink a Route 44, they should be able to drink a Route 44. The government should not come in and start telling us what we can and cannot eat or how much we can drink. And that was something that was really big in 2012 up there. And again, that's government intervention. And how much government intervention do we want? But again, do we want to be totally free? Think about prescription medications. Do you want those to be regulated and in a pharmacy, or you want them to just be sold by anybody and not know what you're getting? Think about milk. It's illegal to sell raw milk in many places if it hasn't been pasteurized for health concerns. I've never had raw milk, but I've had several people tell me that if you've had it, you probably won't want it again, especially if all you've ever had is pasteurized, that it tastes very different. Financial products, and just in general, you cannot enter into a contract with anybody that is under the age of 18. They're not binding. That is why when you're 18, you probably can't get a cell phone contract without a cosigner. You can't buy a car without a cosigner, because any contract with a child under 17 is not binding. So financial products are not going to be sold. They got to be sold to 18-year-olds and up. And even then, we want some regulations to make sure somebody's not selling me stock in some phony company and then going to go run off with all the money. And basically, that is going to be the end to 2.4. And see you for the next lesson.